Hi, and welcome to Darshan Talks. I'm your guest host, Kate Woods. Today, Darshan and I are talking about his journey in founding the Kulkarni law firm and his experiences as a healthcare entrepreneur. We talk about Diwali, the triumph of good over evil, and why he doesn't necessarily want to be a billionaire. We also talk about the pros and cons of having a diverse international team and where AI is taking us in healthcare. Darshan also provides tips to entrepreneurs and aspiring entrepreneurs. It's a great ride. Come join us. Welcome to Darshan Talks. I'm your guest host, Kate Woods, and I'm here today speaking with Darshan Kulkarni, the founder of this podcast. Darshan, thank you for allowing me the opportunity to be a guest host and for being my guest today.
Well, first of all, congratulations for being the first guest host.
Thank you. Today, I thought we would talk about one of my passions, which is the intersection of healthcare and entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
As you know, for, well on 20 years, I've worked with and for entrepreneurs in this space, which is highly regulated and I think creates an environment of risk-taking and balance that many entrepreneurs thrive on. I consider you an entrepreneur. You're not only like a trusted advisor to many organizations and healthcare entities, but you also have founded and maintained your own law firm. So I'd love to talk to you more about that. But first, it would be great if you shared with our listeners where you're actually at right now, calling in to our meeting, and tell them a little bit about what you're doing.
I am actually in India as we speak. It's November, and it's the month of Diwali, which is, for those people who don't know, which I expect is a lot of people, it's the Festival of Lights. It's about the triumph of good over evil. I'm excited to be here because I'm here for multiple reasons. I'm doing some real estate stuff. I'm here because I get to see family. I'm here because I'm going to go see the Taj Mahal tomorrow. I'm here because I'm going to see my business team for the law firm that is helping me as well in a lot of the stuff that we do, including the podcast, including the law firm stuff, and including the software company that I'm trying to bring to the plate. So keeps me busy, keeps me interested, keeps me going.
Oh, okay. So that is a perfect segue into the whole idea of entrepreneurship. And, I'd love to ask you, you've been in-house, you've been external counsel. What led you to finally say, external counsel, my own business is the way I'd like to go?
So for me, I'm a sixth-generation pharmacist. My dad owned a pharmaceutical company. His dad owned a pharmaceutical company. And generations before that, I'm going 6 generations only because that's how far I know, but we own pharmacies. I knew that every business, doesn't matter what business it is, runs off of 3 major legs: the technical aspects of the business aspects of the business, and legal aspects of the business. I have my PharmD, so I have the technical aspects down. I have my JD, so I have my legal aspects down. And I've been doing business since like pharmacy school. So I was doing final accounting and ledgers and journals and stuff all the way in 10th grade when I was in India. When I started working as in-house counsel, I loved doing it. And it's amazing to feel part of a team. But what I've realized is that I really, really love working for myself. I love trying to make my clients happy. Today's clients have 5 different types of meetings scheduled in the next 3 hours while I'm on vacation. This is my life, and I wouldn't change it for anything. I think that I probably need to scale back, and I think that's the big problem with entrepreneurs. We tend to take on more than we should. I read this line, I think it's really smart. Millionaires diversify, billionaires focus. I went in-house to learn a lot. But I knew that I would move out at some point. It was always on the cards, if you will. I don't think that's ever changed.
There are so many threads there I'd love to unpack. I think I'm going to start with the first one. Do you have a goal to become a billionaire, or what is the overarching goal? A lot of times I'll speak with entrepreneurs Like the money's nice. No one ever disputes that. But if you get down to the root, it's never the first cause.
No, for me, I think money for me represents freedom, and it allows me to do what I really want to do. Money, I think money is the price I pay to enjoy my life. Do I want to be a billionaire? Sounds exhausting. I'm not sure, but what I do want to do is I want to change the world. So I'm always thinking about how do I change the world? And Kate, you've been part of that process. You actually helped me cause an impact when you and I worked together on the Governor's Commission. So to me, that's the impact I want to cause. I want to serve in various ways. I want to help in various ways. And the funny part is, as an entrepreneur, you can quantify the difference, and the quantification is often the billions if you did it right.
Another thing that you said that I found interesting is I'm here on vacation, but I'm still working. So is it really a vacation? And it reminded me of that old adage, which is if you're doing something you love,
Yeah.
work is never work. So try and go find that. But even more so, you talked about your team that's there on development and law. So you seem to be right in the sweet spot of where we are today, like international, basically very blurry borders. No one is ever working in just one country now.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear more about what works with that model, where you find the clunkiness of it, and how do you see AI further impacting it or enhancing it?
What worked for me? What I realized is that you can't really do sales outside the US if you're selling to US clients. It's critical that people know who you are, can reach out to you. Even this period that I'm going to be in India, I've had more phone calls in India than I've had in the US. I can't explain it. The best time to get clients is when you leave on vacation. I'm sure you see that when you go, every time you go on vacation, the number of times I've messaged you going, hey, this project, like, just leave me alone. I'm trying to enjoy myself a little bit here.
Yeah, I don't know if it's the red car theory or if it's really something in the universe going, no, it's time to work.
Exactly. I've learned that certain things cannot be outsourced. You need to discover very quickly what they are. And then there's certain things that can be outsourced. It's the back office, it's the web designing, I want to get some of my video editing done. You have a larger population size of very qualified sitting in Asia who are looking to do the extra work. Leverage that. The question of AI, everyone's been talking about AI as if it's going to eliminate jobs. My experience with AI is actually the exact opposite. I think it's going to create jobs because what my experience is that I do a fair bit of marketing. And my experience with marketing has been, I could do one newsletter campaign every week because that's just the bandwidth I had. I can now do 5 because I always wanted to. I just didn't have the bandwidth to do it. AI can help me go from 1 to 5. And maybe I have to hire one more person to just oversee the 5 that I'm doing. So it helps me suddenly go from 1 to 5 to 10, getting a person to help me leverage and sort of scale. So AI gives me scale that I didn't have before. But I think that's the future. AI will just improve, enhance, and multiply what I can already do.
And how do you see that working to enhance healthcare, specifically in the United States and the U.S. healthcare system?
I think we're going to have a very interesting time with that. I think, number one, it depends on which part of healthcare we tackle, right? So I do a fair bit of work in healthcare and I do a fair bit of work in pharma and life sciences. I think we're already seeing the use of AI, for example, with we saw offshoring with the radiologists. The question is, do we now need a radiologist sitting in Thailand to look at your X-ray? Or will the radiologist now be an AI that does 50,000 of them in the course of an hour? But then does someone still need to verify it? So does that hospital go from being a central location that just sort of signs off saying we had someone look at it and we're good with it? Or does this group now in Thailand look at 50,000 more locations because you can centralize that And you can now do more x-rays in more locations, improving universal health.
Such a fascinating idea. My question then to you is, do you think that will lead to increased regulation and oversight or decreased regulation? And if so, where do you see the government's role?
I think it depends. As any good lawyer will tell you, it depends. I think we will have to open up boundaries, and we will have to contemplate this idea that people want to get help wherever they are. Someone sitting in Laos who needs someone from the Mayo Clinic may not be able to get to the Mayo Clinic. And we're going to use telemedicine to help that process along. Are we going to basically put in more regulations on telemedicine? Yes, we are, because we want patients in the US to be safe. But I can guarantee you that the government of Laos is going to look to see how they can enable their patients to get access to the Mayo Clinic without having to leave the country. So it depends on which side of the country, of the globe you are, what you're trying to achieve, and if there are smarter ways to do it. I mean, the Ryan Hyatt law around for the DEA is going to come into play. They're going, how do we use telemedicine in a way that makes sense? And the reason I'm using telemedicine is the latest tool set we've had. AI is the next tool set. And the question is, how are we going to use that in a way that is smart? Because right now, it's all shiny, happy rainbows. But in about a year and a half to 2 years, we're going to start seeing people completely mishandling AI. We're going to see all of those. We're going to see privacy violations. We're going to see AI being used as a surveillance tool. China's already doing a lot of those elements. So given all of these elements, putting them all together, I think we're going to see more regulation around protection from the countries whose resources are going to be used, and less regulation from the countries that want to use those resources. What is your take on that? Do you see that differently?
I think, in all likelihood, it necessarily has to result in increased regulation. And the question becomes, what is thoughtful regulation? And, keeping up with the technology versus trying to take old ideas and shoehorn them into a new world. Which leads me to my next question for you. What voices do you think should have a role to play in shaping any regulation related to the provision of healthcare in the United States and the use of AI? Oftentimes we see regulation comes down like top down. And after something is thought of or written, public comment period. Do you have any ideas for how to make what I would call the best regulation?
I think regulations are like governance. Democracy is not the greatest system in the world. It's unfortunately the best of what we have. In the same way, I think that the best thing we can do for regulations right now is be a bull in a china shop and make a bunch of mistakes and fix them. Because otherwise, what you're going to land up with is a scenario where we just keep waiting to do it right. And if we keep waiting to do it right, it'll take forever to help the patients that we want to help. And I think these patients have waited long enough. Some kind of live surveillance. Let me pick up the phone, talk to someone, and ask you an opinion, and keep going. And that access is difficult at best for the government to achieve. AI, again, might be a tool, it might be a resource to help with that process. Because I think we've got to work with this idea that, can I work in good faith? Because if you didn't ask, you have a problem. But if you did ask, maybe you have, maybe you should get some leeway for that.
Yeah. And where do you see, it's so true, and I can see just federalism making it a little slower because there are obviously multiple bodies of regulatory oversight. But where do you see patient rights in all of this with, AI hallucinations and, my company is a covered entity and yours is a business associate, but who is ultimately going to bear responsibility? And do we shift anything to make software companies more like covered entities with some rules around that than simply voluntary business associates when necessary? Just thinking.
Good questions.
Yeah.
So I think a few different things, right? I think the first part would be, I think between GDPR, CCPA, CPRA, and all these other state laws, we kind of moved away from the concept of covered entities and not. I mean, obviously covered entities works in the context of HIPAA, but you already see covered entities and business associates is what we came out with, sort of the best fit we had for a first-time attempt in the 90s and then the versions after that. I feel like we've moved away from that as a concept, and I see that version happening more, where they go, who's the controller? Why are you taking this effort? What kind of data are you dealing with? Do you need special controls or not? And as we start moving towards that information, I think you have countries like India that are already contemplating their own data privacy programs. They're not going down the HIPAA process. They're going down the CCPA, BDPA, GDPR process. And so I think from that perspective, I think that's the future.
Hi. So I'm just going to close with one question for you, and thank you for your time and your insights, which is, if you had advice to give to someone who longs to be an entrepreneur and in healthcare, what would you tell them from all of the lessons you've learned?
Terrible. No successful entrepreneur I know had work-life balance. Every successful entrepreneur I know, and it means I don't even necessarily mean financially, just anyone who's made the impact that they think they wanted to make. I think work-life balance becomes a seasonal thing, not a simultaneous thing. So you're going to have periods where you have no work-life balance. And then there are going to be periods where you go, I'm shutting things off. I have to spend time with my family. But not everyone's meant for that. So entrepreneurship is glamorized. Entrepreneurship's not always successful. Know what you're signing up for. There are periods where you doubt everything you do. And if you're in for that ride, welcome. It's going to be a fun ride.
Oh, that's a great answer. I want to thank you for this opportunity and thank you for your time. I really enjoyed our conversation. I hope we can continue it.
Absolutely.
If you like this, don't forget to subscribe to our channel